Before we get started, if you have Clubhouse, please follow Ride Boundless. This Friday, I believe it's the 5th, we're going to do a follow-up conversation with Nathon. So whatever you hear on the podcast, if you have any questions or if there's anything we miss, you can join us at 7 p.m. February 5th, 2021, and talk about the episode and ask whatever question you would like. So make sure, if you're already on Clubhouse, to follow Ride Boundless and be tuned in for February 5th, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Welcome back to another episode of the Ride Boundless podcast. This episode is brought to you by, you know who, Ride Clean. The simple way of keeping your motorcycle clean, your car clean, your glasses clean, shit, everything clean. Just simply shake, spray, and wipe, and it's just that easy. Check them out at rideclean.co. Use promo code RBPodcast for 20% off, plus free shipping. Plus, they're offering 2-ounce bottles that they're shipping out with every order, so you can take in your motorcycle, in your pocket, or wherever you want. That's rideclean.co, promo code RBPodcast. Just want to give a quick shout out to Los Angeles Moto. Check out their Instagram handle at Los Angeles Moto. These guys are pretty badass. They have a great photographer. They have a great group of riders. They set up a ride every weekend. And thanks to one of their rides, I got my next guest. My next guest, you can see his Instagram at Nathon Verdugo. He is a two-wheel enthusiast, marketing director for MV Agusta, and first-string player for Team Badassness, which I didn't even know and we didn't talk about because he just sent me his intro. But without further ado, let's get started with Nathon Verdugo. Here we go. Okay, so we were talking about a few things. We were talking about an idea that you read about that you don't recall where you read about or what the source was.
It was touching on the homelessness issue, and it was saying that like it was an astronomical number. It was like 85% of the homeless population suffers from mental health issues. So realistically, the underlying issue with homelessness in LA or across the country is a mental health issue, right? And
well, pre-COVID or current?
Currently, yeah. So it's always kind of been that, and then on top of that, you have addiction being another issue, right, which is arguably a mental health issue if you ask me. Anyway, so
cheers.
Yeah, cheers, bro. That's the wild part. Sorry.
No, you're good, man.
I think there's a stigma around homelessness of just being like lazy or like you're choosing to be anti-establishment or it's easier to just panhandle for a living. And the reality of it is there's more going on than just that. You know what I mean? I don't think anybody dude, you've sat out in the rain before. You've sat at the bus stop for whatever. You know what I mean? Like,
sucks.
Totally.
Especially in like the 90s and stuff.
Totally.
Before like, Ubers, scooters, apps, anything. Like in the 90s, all the time.
Even if you were just a kid and had to wait for the bus in the cold or in the weather.
It sucks.
It sucks. Like nobody wants to be out there like that. You know what I mean? And especially, dude, like think about the social stigma that comes around it. Like once you got old enough to drive, if you were the only one that didn't have a car, or if you didn't have this or you didn't have that, like that followed you. Like, no, I have a hard time believing that the folks that are out there in the streets are like stoked to be there. You know what I mean? It's not like it's not a social protest of like, well, give me a sandwich and fucking I'll figure it out. You know what I mean? It's not like that, I don't think.
Yeah, well, there's a few things. One thing, you're right, there's a lot of addicts, because I've been asked. I remember I was like 14 years old, and this guy was like, hey, can I have some money for food? And I was like, not really. I walked into the store, and I said, you know what, let me buy him a sandwich. I bought him a sandwich. I walk outside, I said, here, man, I got you a sandwich. He grabbed the sandwich, said, I don't want no fucking sandwich, and he threw it on the street.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is fucked. So that really messed my perception, where I'm like, these guys are druggies. They're all druggies.
But the question is why? Why?
Why are they druggies?
No, where is the underlying thing? Like, you know what I mean? I'm not to make any assumptions about yourself, but I assume that, you know, a lot of us have tried. I mean, we're drinking beers right now. We've tried things or whatever. None of those things for the vast majority of us is
Keep going. Keep going. Keep going. I'm just gonna turn off this heater.
Yeah. None of that has really like flipped that switch for most people to be like, this is all I care about, and I'm willing to give up everything in my life for this, including shelter, including warmth, including normalcy, including like.
We're talking about the drug problem.
Sure. I mean,
Right. We're talking about why they got to that point, what they chose over it.
And what I'm trying to like bring it back to is I honestly believe it is the underlying issue is a mental health problem, and the drug addiction is part of the trying to cope with those other problems that they have, right?
Right.
And so when you have the baseline problem, and then you have the drugs, and then you have the interaction with social norms,
And then the shitty drugs, because all the drugs are illegal, so the only way you get drugs is shitty, quality drugs.
And then I can only imagine, you know, like if you've ever had to spend even, you know, a couple hours in the system or on the streets, that also is a negative impact on your well-being and the way that you feel about things and the way that you interact with people. Like it all is like a perfect storm for just being one of those people that if you're not caught up in it, to be like, figure it out and move the fuck on, you know?
But I think it's way more complex. I think it's fair enough that I would agree that a big percentage of the people that are out in the streets that fits the qualification or why they're out there. But I mean, there's crazy shit going on. I've talked about it on this podcast before. The people asking for money on the corners, that's all mob base. It's all mobsters. It's all gangsters. They have controlled people. That's why it's always the same person in the same corner. Sure. That's why nobody's ever taken over that corner. I've heard that people get into drug debts or they get into some kind of debt, and now their penalty is you're standing on that fucking corner and you're collecting money from me until you pay your debt. I don't care if it's a year or not. And we have people watching you. Nobody will mess with your corner, but you can't leave your corner because we'll come after you. So there's that whole mob aspect of it. Then there's the whole, look how worse it got once California 2-3 years ago approved a law saying anybody can sleep on the sidewalks. You know, that's a law they passed. So they passed anybody could sleep on the sidewalk, and then they also passed anybody could sleep in their car. All right. And now look at the numbers of homeless. Now, for whatever amount of homeless is, you could only imagine how many people are sleeping in their car to top it off. So there is something with state, with mob, with mental illness. There's something with drugs, you know, same thing. They talk about this a lot, but there was the shelters. A lot of homeless people don't want to go to a shelter because they can't do their drugs at the shelter. And if they have to choose between doing their drugs and going into the shelter, you know, now they're like, fuck that. So now they're on the streets, down the street here, breaking into cars and creating problems. Like, it's such a big, complex issue that nobody knows what to do. And that's what we're dealing with.
Especially if you're siloed in your solution making, right? If you only are like, all right, well, I need to fix the crime problem, or I need to fix the dirt problem, or I need to fix the drug problem. Realistically, it should be a collaborative effort with, in my opinion, society figuring out how to fix this issue. You know what I mean? Because if you come up with one solution, there's an adverse effect to the other thing. Like the part of the reason why they don't want to go to the shelters, like you said, is because they can't do their drugs, because it's illegal. Maybe if the drugs that they were doing were legal, then they could go there and it wouldn't be such a thing, you know.
Like Argentina, South America, Spain,
Canada.
Well, I'm talking about like a lot of drugs, a lot more, not just marijuana, but a lot more drugs are legal. Amsterdam, you know, these are all legal countries where it's like almost every drug. Now Oregon, you saw the whole Oregon thing, right?
Yep.
And all I think this pushes to do is to get better quality drugs on the street, or better quality drugs to people. Because again, when you're doing it, you know, backdoor, dude, I don't know if you bought weed 10, 15 years ago, 20 years ago when you were 18, whatever the case is. you used to like have to meet some shady dude, and he gave you like a pack of, it looked like dirt, and it had seeds and stems, and and you had to know 5 other people to get to that guy, and you were just, it was scary, and your friends are in the car. It was so shitty. Now it's legal, and look how cool it is. Like you walk into a store, what's your strains? All right, let me see the test results. Oh, the THC, the CBD.
Bro, wasn't it Louis C.K. that had a bit about like, I used to risk my life for a bag of swag or whatever?
Did he have a skill? I love Louis C.K. I watch all of his stuff. I didn't see that.
I remember him saying, like it was like talking to his future kids or whatever, where they're like, where they have weed shops that are just like 7-Elevens or whatever. You just walk in and buy whatever, and like them talking to that younger generation of like, I used to risk my life to buy a dime bag, I used to have to go sit in somebody's car that I didn't know, and they'd drive me to a place that I'd never seen before, and I'd have to wait.
And no idea what part of town you're in.
Totally,
like, because you don't even have a GPS or map.
Totally.
It's funny because I was talking to a friend of mine, and we were talking about a saying or expression that goes, the older you get, the better you were. And that leads to like, back in my days, I risked my life to, for a dime bag.
For sure.
That's hilarious, man.
Yeah.
What's going on, man? What else has happened in business?
So just recently I left Roland Sands Designs, where I was the experiential marketing manager for a couple of years.
What a cool environment there.
Beautiful. Like those guys are our family. Like Roland and I established a relationship probably a good 3 or 4 years prior. I was definitely aware of him before he knew who I was. But we established a relationship like 3 or 4 years ago. This is while I was working for Ducati. And then I left Ducati, and an opportunity with him came up, and we didn't even actually like, it was funny when he called me, he didn't actually have a specific role in mind. He was just like, hey man.
Well, hold on. How did he even call you? Like how was that whole interaction? So he reached out to you. You didn't apply for a job there.
No. Yeah. So, he had, I mean, like I said, we kind of established a relationship like early on, and we're just cool about stuff. And, after I left Ducati, he was aware, and, we chatted about some things in terms of like, like which direction to go next or what else should I do. And which was like super rad to me. Like it's awesome when you meet people and they are really, at least in the moment, it feels like they're as invested in your success as you are. I'm one of those people. I like, if there's something that I can do to help you be better or get to that next level, use me, please. Yeah. And I think Roland is one of those type of people too. Like he recognizes, I don't want to say he recognizes. He is open to, if you need something that he can help facilitate that is just natural to him, like
he'll
absolutely.
do it.
If you're asking him to come over and mow your lawn, he probably will, but begrudgingly. You know what I mean? Like
right.
We're not all that great of it. Anyways.
Right. But overall, for as much as he's doing and for his status, he still acknowledges people trying to do better in life.
Totally.
And he supports it.
Totally.
That's awesome.
So we kind of went back and forth with a couple of ideas, and then one day he like literally called me out of the blue at brunch, and he was like, what are you doing? Can you come into the office tomorrow? And I was like, yeah, I can come down. He's like, yeah, cool. We just need to talk about some stuff. I was like, all right. So I came down there, and then we just like, basically, like we had a very kind of, arm's distance relationship of knowing each other. You know what I mean? Like, you're cool. We drink sometimes, funny jokes, blah, blah, blah. We didn't.
Fuck that guy.
Yeah. We just didn't really have like an intimate knowledge of like, this is who you are. This is who I am. So we kind of sat and we just talked for like an hour and a half in his office. And then a couple days went by, and then he hit me up and was like, yeah, man, do you want to work here? And I was like, all right. And we never really like discussed like a specific role.
Yeah.
We just knew that there was something there, and we could work together. And
that was the exact conversation. Hey, you want to work here? Like, all right, well, fuck it.
Totally.
You're cool.
It was, pretty much like that. And
it's fucking crazy.
Yeah. I mean, you know, I obviously have a background in marketing and public relations. I was racing the Super Hooligan series at the time.
That's so cool.
So there was a lot
gotta
of
do one
like
those.
crossover, like we get the same things, and yeah. So went and worked with him and the team for like a good 2 years, and it was awesome. And then yeah, kind of at the same thing out of nowhere, an opportunity presented itself with MV Agusta, and they had a position open for their uh, North American marketing director. And man, I'm always a person for a challenge. Like it was obviously bittersweet, really bittersweet, leaving RSD to come take on this new role. But like I said, I'm always open to a challenge. MV is a brand that has such a rich history, such cool product, but they struggle with even brand awareness in North
Right.
America. Well, like when the offer came through, and I told some friends who are avid motorcyclists, like people who ride motorcycles a lot. I was like, hey man, I'm gonna go to work for MV Agusta, and they're like, who? I'm like, wow.
Like, come on, guys.
Yeah, no, but I mean,
Yeah,
like
but-
for me, that was like, thank God, just
That was an eye opener.
totally, yeah.
So it must be very exciting to work for such a big company that has a big history, but nobody knows. I mean, that's almost like it should be pretty easy, you know, to get them out there because you have so much to work with compared to trying to launch a new company and building that history up, right?
Totally. And not to mention that like our customers are such fanatics of the brand
Yeah.
that relying on them and their wealth of knowledge and their like understanding of the brand, it helps me tremendously to continue to tell their story. Like
Yeah.
it is probably of all the brands that are out there, it is one that has such a tight knit and significant community that like keeps the lineage alive. So I'm excited to really like wrap my arms around those folks and learn from them as much as I can, you know?
Yeah, and I did say that it'd be easier to market a company that's existed more than a new company, but actually you're the marketing expert. What is easier? Is it easier to kind of like launch a company? Like let's say you had $1 million, right? And you have two choices. You have choice one, create a brand new brand and launch it and control everything about it and get it out there. And I'm talking about with your experience. Or option two, get a company that's been around for 70 plus years. They have a lot of history, but in the U.S. market, they're not that well known. But you know, you still have $1 million to market them. What would be easier in a marketing? And before you answer that question,
Yeah.
just for my listeners, who are you and what do you do?
Nathan Verdugo, motorcycle enthusiast, current marketing director for MV Agusta North America.
That's awesome, and congrats on that new position.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
So what would be easier? You have $1 million to launch a new company, or $1 million to launch an existing company that's not that well known but has a solid history?
So it's funny because the way that my brain works always when I'm posed a question, this makes it difficult sometimes for me to communicate, even though I'm a communications major, is as I'm asked the question, my brain is literally doing analysis on both sides. And as I come up with the point that my mouth is ready to speak, my brain is arguing the other point simultaneously.
Hilarious.
So it's funny because I feel like there's pros and cons from both sides, right? If you are a brand new company with a genius idea that nobody's ever thought of before, I would say it's easier to come out of the gate and be like, look, guys, here's this problem that has always been a problem. We're solving it now. Join us, blah, 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 blah. Do that, right?
Like the whole Kickstarter
Totally.
status.
As opposed to a company, it depends, right? Because if you're a company that was like, you know, had a long heritage, but over the years it's just got continuously worse and you kind of effed up the brand, and now you want it to make a 180-degree turn. Like, look, guys, you thought we were this, but guess what? We're actually that, and it's better. It's kind of a challenge. So there's pros and cons to both. In my situation with MV, here's a brand that has such a rad heritage, such cool stories to tell, 75 years of awesome product
and proven track record.
Totally. And even
literally,
even with the new with the ownership that's happened, you've got a young, passionate guy that has taken over as CEO and has really got some awesome broad scale ideas of where he wants to take the brand. And he's passionate about the brand. He's passionate about Two Wheels. It's not a conglomerate. It's not a hedge fund group. It's not a
corporate or people that have no motorcycle experience or controlled by the stock.
Totally.
Like Harley. That's one of Harley's problems. Harley is making a bunch, like, the information that I understand is Harley's getting a bunch of they're trying to make their stockholders happy. So they make all these new motorcycles without knowing if they're going to sell or not. And the problem is all the dealers are local franchises. So as Harley, tells the stockholders, oh, look, we're creating 5 new motorcycles, the dealers are like, well, fuck, we don't know if that's going to sell or not. But guess what? They're allocated to buy a certain amount of motorcycles. So they're forced to buy it. And now Harley says, look, we moved these new motorcycles. See how great that was? And the shareholders are like, yeah, thank you very much. So that's what happens, but that's not happening here.
Yeah, I think it's wild when a brand decides to pivot with their product and still relies on the same sort of sales network to continue to push. You know what I mean? Like, if you develop a sales market and team specific to push this type of product, and then you introduce something else that might be wildly different, an electric bicycle, for example. If you've been pushing V-twin motorcycles your entire life, it's wild for me to expect that dealer network would know how to handle that and be able to just be like, okay, yeah, we can do that now. You know what I mean? Like, if you're going to change product, you have to kind of change the way that you're going to do business across the scale,
right?
What your sales network looks like, how you're marketing, all of that stuff has to change at the same time. Like, it's you're sort of setting yourself up for failure, I would imagine, if you're expecting the people who've been trained and have bought into the lifestyle and have bought into the idea of what this is to then try to sell that.
Right. Yeah. It becomes a challenge because you have to. I mean, just dealing with one product is difficult, and then dealing with different models of products is more difficult, and then getting a completely separate thing is just it almost doesn't make sense.
Totally.
What do you think, since you're in marketing and you focus on targeting audiences and stuff, what do you think is the solution for? It seems like less people are getting motorcycles, especially this younger generation. Like, I mean, overall, I almost want to say this younger generation doesn't even want to get cars. Like, one of the highlights for me was to get a driver's license. Now it's like, well, why would I get a driver's license? I got an Uber, I got a Lyft, I got this. What do you think would be the solution to be able to push more motorcycle sales? Or get people riding, or excited about riding?
That's a great question, and I'm sure all the folks at IMS and AMA are like pondering that question over and over all the time. And I probably don't have a silver bullet answer for it, but honestly, I think what it is not to make myself sound old, but it feels like the younger generation have gotten used to how easy it is.
They're a bunch of bitches. No, I'm fucking kidding.
I don't want to say that about that. I mean, they're like, the generation before that could say that about us for sure.
Right.
And so it's just different. The way that they process information, the things that are easy are going to be easy, right? Like, like think about, I mean, getting a message to a loved one, even in our generation, is much easier than it was 2 generations ago.
Right.
So the idea of motorcycling, or just anything that comes easier, is something that we have to take into consideration. And so these barriers of entry that make motorcycling so ethereal to even think about for a younger generation, of like, I've got a million things on my plate. The last thing I need to worry about is like, do I have the right gear? Do I have the right licensing? I have to pay this? I have to do that. I have to do all the stuff that
the right helmet, the right gloves, the right jacket, the right boots.
Totally. Or you know what I mean? Like, it's not that accessible. And on the one part, I love the fact that like motorcycling is one of those things that you have to sort of like make an effort to go and do. Like, you know what I mean? Like you put your helmet on, you have to be thinking about what you're doing because you're literally your life is on the line, right? So you don't want to make it too easy, but honestly, I think that the electric platforms are going to be the wave. Like that is for me the going to be the gateway drug to something bigger, faster, and stronger. And arguably speaking, if the younger generation, and I'm talking folks that are like, you know, between the ages of 9 to 15 at the moment, by the time that they get to our age, will motorcycles even look the way, will they even have any sort of resemblance of what they look like now? I'm not sure, right? But I think to keep folks interested in like taking life in their own hands, literally, and putting themselves out there and like sort of deviating from the norms of society.
Right.
I still believe electric platforms right now are kind of the way. Like, you know, they're easier. If you have parents that are not into that at all, it's probably easier to talk your folks into an electric bicycle than it is a full-fledged, even, you know, a small
Electric bicycle, like meaning bicycle electric, like the Super 73s or the mountain bikes or something like that?
I'm thinking something super like the Super 73, the Cakes, any of the electric platforms that resemble a bicycle that maybe they still have pedals on them. I mean, that's easier to convince your family who that might be anti-motorcycle, and I'm throwing up air quotes, motorcycle, to even a very like
air quotes.
to even a small displacement motorcycle, right? You know.
Right.
They'll be like, oh yeah, I'm not even worried about it. But the throttle interaction, the speeds that you get, the ability to move in and out of traffic, the ability to get to where you're going and get exactly to where you're going. Like I don't have to worry about a parking spot. I don't have to worry about this. I don't have to worry. I go exactly and park, put the bike exactly where I want it. That is appealing, especially as a society, as we start to create more rules. Motorcycles, two-wheeled transportation will always be a freedom that people who don't experience will never understand. And if you unless you have that experience, and even with bicycles too, I love anything two wheels.
Yeah, even bicycles, you're right.
The ability to just go wherever you want,
and
get wherever you want, and park and not take up so much space, and walk in and do your thing, get out away from everything. It's
insane, and it's super fucking convenient. I've literally lately I ride my bike and I go through town, I go downtown, blah blah, cut through traffic, this that. As soon as I get off, I feel like I just got off a parachute. I feel like I just like you know, I'm landed. And if I have to go to the store real quick, you know, I just ride to the store, keep my helmet on, buy what I got to buy, walk back out, jump on the bike, leave. I'm back where I'm at. And the convenience is insane. And because of that fucking BMW right there, I've ridden on so many sidewalks. It's ridiculous, man. Like it's just so fucking like nothing's gonna stop you if you want to push it.
The coolest thing about being a motorcyclist at the moment too now is because of the mask mandate. So if you're going to the grocery store, you ride the bike there, you just keep your helmet on, you walk through, like you know,
100%.
It's just like the most easy.
Yeah, put on a mask.
You don't have to carry your helmet no more. It's not socially awkward to be walking through the grocery store with your helmet on.
And everybody's like, man, that's a great mask. Like it's no stupid. It's a fucking helmet. Yeah, no, the convenience of it is amazing. Here, I think this is the best way to answer the marketing question. Why do you ride?
Why do I ride? Oh wow. Well, that's kind of
how long have you been riding?
Yeah, so that's sort of a long question for me, and so that is actually the question I love asking people, especially from the marketing side. So I'll kind of back you up a little bit. So, I really had no choice but to ride. Both my parents were into it. My mom, both my parents rode and raced. Yeah, my mom raced speedway in the 70s, flat track in the 90s. She teaches motorcycle safety now. My dad built race motors back then. He raced himself. So motorcycles were always omnipresent in my life. Like I had really no choice. I had my first race at 3 years old.
Wow.
And
what were you riding?
it was an ATC 70.
Fuck.
Yeah, it was, and I can't imagine myself being a 3-year-old toddler being like, "Hey guys, I want to race motorcycles." It was probably more like, "We're cool parents. Look at our kid races," you know. But still, it was still part of my life from
you were
before
born
I
into
can remember. Yeah, exactly. And so, funny enough, my parents split up when I was 13.
And talk closer to the mic.
Yeah,
Sorry about that.
My parents split up when I was 13, and our whole family kind of transitioned. Everybody sort of split off at that point in time. And so at that point, my teenage rebellion was to be anti-motorcycles. So from like 13
That's
to 20.
hilarious.
Yeah. So from like 13 to 20.
Fuck no, I'm not riding motorcycles. Too many motorcycles in my life. I don't need it.
Yeah. I was like, that's your thing. Like, I need to figure out what my thing is, you know? And I'm looking back, I'm happy that happened because, you know, during that time when I sort of shunned motorcycling, I shunned my lineage. I found art, I found music, I found fashion, I found other things that like made me a bit more multifaceted and that I appreciate still now to this day.
Right.
And then around 20 or so, I found motorcycling again, and I wanted to say I didn't like abstain from it completely from 13 to 20. I still would like ride here and there.
Right. There's bikes all over the place.
Yeah.
Might as well.
But then, you know, when I was 20, I sort of found it again for myself and like realized that I actually love it too.
Right.
And then, yeah, kind of was off to the races from there. I think I'm lucky enough to have it always in my life because it made it easier to find it as a career.
So you as a career, you were completely racing professionally, getting sponsored, like.
So not until I was like once I picked it back up again.
Right.
So then I
in
was
your
like,
20s.
yeah. Then I was like, all right, I want to start riding again. And actually, I'd always been a motocross, supercross fan.
Yeah.
And I walked into the dealership to go buy a motocross bike, and they were all. I was in the market for a CRF 450 at the time. That was like the hottest bike to get for motocross. They were all sold out of that bike, so I ended up with a KTM 525 SX. And it was way too big for most motocross tracks in Southern California. Plus, I'm like, 165 pounds, maybe, soaking wet.
Right.
And it was a big bike for motocross tracks to try to muscle around. My dad had always been a fan of Baja and off-road racing, so he convinced me to convert the bike into an off-road bike, and I started racing District 37, Score, Best in the Desert, like all these big off-road races.
Explain all that. Because I'm not familiar with that, and I'm sure many listeners are not familiar with that.
Yeah, it's
District 31?
District 37.
37.
Yeah, it's big, long distance off-road races. So
they last for what? Hours, days?
It depends. It really depends on the length. So District 37 is usually like smaller courses, are probably around 37 to 60 miles, but super technical.
It's fucking crazy.
Over rocks and stuff like that. And
and it's a race.
Yeah, I mean it's just a bomb start. For a lot of them, it's a bomb start where you start on a line with 100 or so other riders. There's a big smoke bomb, a mile off in the distance, and they throw the flag and you pin it towards the bomb, like where the smoke is coming from.
Whoa,
and
that sounds cool.
Yeah, that leads you, like, you kind of basically follow the ribbons throughout the course to get where you're going.
That's awesome.
And you cover all types of terrain. I mean,
you do that for 36 miles. So what happens? Every mile they throw another bomb, or
no.
You follow the ribbons once you
just
start.
Following the ribbons. Yeah.
Wow,
And
but people get lost, right?
Oh yeah. People you go off course. So District 37 is one discipline. It's all sort of in the same family of off-road racing. So you have District 37, you have Best in the Desert, and you have Score. Best in the Desert is another like long-form off-road race. Those are usually 250 to 500 to. They actually have Vegas to Reno so however many miles that is. That's the longest off-road race in North America and United States.
And it's no roads. It's just completely.
It's all off-road. Yeah.
That is fucking insane. The bikes must get beat the fuck up after that, huh?
Yeah. So you have to build a strong bike. you also have to be a racer who's not just like, I'm the fastest person. You have to be able to like maintain machinery, especially some of these races are team races too. So you might do, you know, a 60-mile stint, hand the bike off to somebody else. They do another 60 miles. You jump back on and you kind of leapfrog each other. So that's Best in the Desert. And then Score is the outfit that puts on all the Baja races. So San Felipe 250, Baja 500, Baja 1000. So yeah, my dad was a big fan of long distance off-road racing and got me into that. And I had some pretty good success with that. The first time I went to Baja, we ended up second place in our class. Second time. Yeah. Second time I went down there.
Your dad must have been so fucking happy.
He was super pumped. Yeah.
It was like, ah.
Yeah. And then through that, I off-road racing at that point in time too was not a money-making sport. It was one of those things where the best that you could do is sort of via sponsorship and other ways sort of earn your fun for free, you know, where you almost break even, which was cool, you know. And I kind of got to that point. The closest thing that I ever got to like a real, like almost factory sponsorship was I did the developmental test riding for Aprilia on their RXV 550. They're most notable. The RXV family is most notable for their supermoto accolades, but they also had an off-road bike, and I developed that in Baja. I'm the first person to ride an Aprilia and finish in Baja. So,
holy shit!
Yeah, that part was cool.
Should be on your resume.
Yeah,
is it on your resume?
Yeah, it is. Actually, it's on my LinkedIn.
That's fucking awesome.
And that started my relationship with Italian brands, oddly enough. So,
have you been to Italy? Weird question.
I have. I've been to Italy several times. Yeah.
I went for the first time last year. Well, before COVID, like a year before COVID, so 2 years ago.
Rad.
Yeah. Rome to me was like, it's a bunch of ruins. I don't know.
Which parts did you go to?
I went to Rome. I went to Venice. I went to Florence. I love Florence. I love Venice. Rome was really like, it's a bunch of ruins, you know. And I thought the service was fucking terrible.
Yeah.
They didn't give a fuck. I got in a fight with the dude trying to charge me money to use the bathroom. I just paid like $100 for tickets to see rocks. And then I go, can I use your bathroom? I went downstairs to use the bathroom. And the guy's like, scusi, you need to pay $5. And I'm like, $5? Use your fucking bathroom? Get out of here. And I started like, I'm not you. So I went to use the bathroom. Like, he can't put his hands on me. And he's putting his hands on me. I'm like, dude, like, what the fuck are you doing? Yeah. I'm out of here. I'm peeing somewhere else. So, but Florence was amazing. Got some great leather there. And then Venice. I thought Venice was cool. And
Venice is rad, right? Venice is the first time I went to Venice, it almost looked like the buildings were facades, right? Like you almost went to like look behind and like imagine the sticks popping.
But that's you the way I describe that is guns. Like you have toy guns, and toy guns look so fucking real that real guns look fake, you know? Yeah. And I think Vegas did such a great job of Venice that when you go to Venice, you're like, motherfucker, this is fake, man. Totally. This has to be fake, but it's legit. It's badass. It's a great experience.
My grandfather used to build movie sets back in the day, so like being able to see, like being on movie sets, going to amusement parks, going to places like Vegas, and then you go to the place that it's actually modeled after, and they're like, wait, hold on.
and interesting enough to add to that is the way they paint the sky, like in the Venetian and stuff like that. You look at that and you're like, oh, this bullshit fucking sky. Yeah. But when we were in Paris and in Italy, the sky looks painted. There's parts of Europe where for some reason the clouds and the lighting and I don't know what the fuck's going on. It looks like a painting. I took so many cloud pictures in Europe because I was like, dude, this looks like
it's amazing.
So that's where I don't know. Clouds kind of like break things up. Like, you know, I've done skydiving a few times, and when it was just a clear blue sky, it was the most boring video because it's just like, But when you have that context of like nice big rain clouds or whatever, now you could see like, you could see where you're at and how you're spinning and how fast you're going. So you see those little details. But sorry, so now you attracted all these Italian companies. Oddly enough,
that's where I started, and then sort of.
So you don't like American bike? No, I'm
No,
so kidding.
I do. I
Fucking idiot.
love American motorcycle. I love Japanese brands. I love them all. Like that's the thing is like I was actually having that conversation with somebody right before I came over here about how, you know, it seems recently that that I want to say in the past that motorcycling was so segmented and niche to each sport that, like, you know, road racers had nothing to do with guys who rode baggers, or folks who rode flat track didn't really know about guys doing anything in supercross, right? And it seems as though that is starting to evaporate a bit, and that, like, you know, if you're into motorbikes, like, you're into motorbikes regardless of what your discipline is. And I love seeing that because, man, like I said, I'm a fan of two wheels. Like I have a Super 73, I have an MV, I have a hooligan bike, I have a motocross bike. I love all of them. I love all of them for different reasons, but it's funny because I love all of them for different reasons. But if I think about it, I love all of them for the exact same reason, you know?
Yeah. Makes that's a perfect oxymoron.
Yeah.
It makes sense.
Yeah.
But you know what's interesting is that everybody talks about how the numbers of motorcycle purchases is going down. And I know that the amount of motorcycles in the US, it's like very low. I don't remember the exact number. I'm just going to guess, but it was like 6% or 9% of people in the United States have a registered motorcycle. And maybe another like 3% of off-road vehicles. It's not a lot, but I've traveled so much that I see how many scooters and motorcycles they're almost the primary, transportation system. I've been in India where I've seen a family of 5. I'm talking about father, wife, baby, 5-year-old, 3-year-old on a scooter, and I'm like, whoa! And if you go online, you could just search motorcycles around the world, like Colombia. Colombia, everybody's in scooters and motorcycles. So it's interesting how many motorcycles and how many people ride in crazy conditions daily. But in America, it's less than 10%.
Yeah.
It's so wild to me.
Same. So I lived in Indonesia for a year, and that was the first time I would see like a family of 4 on a scooter with like a stack of chickens in the back, hauling ass. Yeah, like literally a baby on the side, like a 4-year-old, the mom, the dad, the chickens, just hauling ass through traffic.
Fucking cow, like it's
feathers
ridiculous.
flying everywhere for sure. I think still part of what it is it's a cultural thing for sure. And with the U.S., the idea of motorcycles is still hobbyist and entertainment. They haven't quite like crossed over that utilitarian reason yet. You know what I mean?
Right. Because we have so many fucking options, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. Like, the United States is such a car culture. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like,
even like in the last 100 years, I get it.
From the beginning. I mean, it went from horses to cars. There was no any in between. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, motorcycle culture is still like I said, sort of entertainment and hobbyist. I don't know how much it'll help by introducing the utilitarian component of it.
Well, I to top that off, now that you're saying this, it's also price point. I mean, you go to South America or India or Asia, which is part of India. You go to those places and you ask any of them, like, hey, would you rather have a car or a motorcycle? They're gonna say, of course, I'd take a fucking car.
Yes.
But because of financing and stuff like that, that makes sense. Isn't it interesting? I forgot where I saw this, but it was they made a quote or a statement saying that when cars were introduced, the rich would drive cars and the poor would ride horses. But today, the rich ride horses and the poor drive cars.
Totally. I mean,
it's interesting how things change. Well, it's not that it changes. It's just styles always come back.
100%. And if you think honestly, with say Southern California as being one of the bigger motorcycle markets, it is the market specific is less advantageous for motorcycles being used utilitarian, right?
Right.
You almost, motorcycles as a utility are better suited for places with way more congestion. Not to say that LA doesn't have the worst traffic in the world, but like, places like New York or places that are like very, very urban, where a motorcycle gets you in and out. And I'm talking about very small displacement, like you were talking about in Colombia or South America,
Argentina, Brazil, all of them.
Like where you can get in and out, weave through traffic, park on the sidewalk, do your thing, get in and get out, and be done. Then as a utility vehicle, motorcycles are phenomenal. California is still vast enough, even though that there is traffic, it's still vast enough where like motorcycles aren't thought in that way. They're not. For me, I do. I think of motorcycles as the key to the city, no matter where I am. If there's going to be any sort of traffic, I love motorcycles as transportation for me in LA, because I don't have to think about traffic schedules or anything like that. I have to be there in 20 minutes. I'll be there in 20 minutes.
Right.
Yeah.
I know this guy that he would on the ways, you can switch if you're in car or motorcycle.
And it would give you different time.
And it'd give you different time. But he didn't like the motorcycle time. He liked putting the car times because he could beat it. He was always against it.
Yeah.
He was a silly bitch. Sorry, I got to throw that out there.
That kind of brings me to another point. I wish
sorry. It's okay.
I wish in some aspects that the when it comes to that point, I wish in some aspects that the AMA worked as hard for motorcycles as the NRA works for guns. Yeah. Like for instance, NRA was pushing for a bill that would allow you, if you were licensed to carry in one state, so say you got licensed to carry in Texas, right? And in an open carry state, California was not an open carry state, right?
Right.
If you were licensed as an open carry state in Texas, if you traveled to California, you could open carry there, right?
Right.
So I would love if the AMA was in the same situation where it was like you were licensed as a lane splitting state here, that you could lane split everywhere. I wish that lane splitting was open everywhere.
Isn't it unbelievable that it's only California that allows it?
It's crazy to me.
It's the only one.
It's crazy. It's crazy to me.
And what's even crazier is how shitty people are in their cars when you try to split lanes in a different state.
Oh my
They're
gosh.
fucking dicks, man. They're like, look, they're waiting for a bike to fucking, split so they can cut them off, so they can, like cause them to crash. Like it's fucking nuts.
It's wild because, in my opinion, we're doing both of us a favor. I'm not being around you, and you're not being around me. Like I get to get away from car. I don't trust cars. Most of those folks are not paying attention. I arguably myself included. When I'm in a car, I'm way less engaged. Like
100%. I've said this 1,000 times, but I got to say it again. There was a time when self-driving cars were coming out that I was like, fuck that. I love driving too much. I don't want no fucking self-driving cars. But I have ridden and split through so many cars. And when you're splitting through cars and you look at mirrors, people's mirrors are facing. Like when you look at a rearview mirror, you should see the person's face. You see like the floor, you see the sky, you see the car next to them. Yeah. All I can think about is we need self-driving cars badly.
Not to mention when you're on a bike and you can see inside people's vehicles and see what they're doing.
They're fucking, you see all
What's
kinds
the wildest
of
thing you've seen?
I just see a lot of people fucking eating and fucking on their phones. That's the crazy. I can't say I haven't seen like people jerking off or a woman playing with their fucking shit. Like I can't. I haven't seen that much crazy shit. But a lot of like eating food and on their phone and not looking at the road.
Not even just eating food. Like when you say eating food,
I'm talking about like they're digging in their bag.
I've literally seen full plates of like.
Two hands on a hot dog. I've seen food. I've seen a bunch of
bowls of spaghetti
I haven't seen
Have
Bulls
you ever
movie.
seen the folks of like where they have the computer set up in the
Yeah.
passenger and
Yeah.
they're like working on the computer?
There's a guy with a truck. He had a little like a stand. It looked like a police stand. I don't know, but he was fucking Coca-Cola, big fucking Coca-Cola computer, like nuts.
I've seen folks also in nice cars, dressed in nice suits. This is again from a motorcycle's perspective as going by with full length bongs, like a bong between their legs.
Really? I smelled a lot of weed. A
Totally,
lot of fucking weed, especially when there's traffic. Like
Totally.
there's so much weed going on here. And it's weird because you'll pass like 4 cars weed, and then you go 4 cars more and there's a cop, and then 4 cars more and there's weed. Like it's everybody's getting high on the freeway.
100%.
Which is another crazy aspect of what we have to deal with. But I can't imagine not riding. I can't. I really can't. I lose my mind. I've come home. You know, I had to pick up the truck. Once I pick up the truck, you know, I jump on the freeway and fuck. Sorry, this light dims down. These ones stay on. But
Like,
you know,
I thought it was like psilocybin flashbacks.
yeah. But I'll get in the truck. I'll go 3 miles and I'll turn back around. I'll turn right back around and say, fuck this, man. I'm jumping on a bike. I can't do it.
Yeah.
You know, right now I'm like, it's gonna rain. Shit, I don't have fucking good rain gear. I need new rain gear. I just bought rain gear today because, you know, it was because I wanted it. Okay, I fucking wanted rain gear, and it's much better, obviously.
Hey, I'm not mad at you. It's weird because I'm both sides of it. I am my preferred mode of transportation is motorcycle for sure, but being a SoCal sort of native, at least in some components of it, like I'm a sissy when it comes to cold weather. Good gear is a godsend. If you have good gear, ride 365 days a year, 100%, right?
Yeah. But depending what state you're in too, because there's some shitty weather out there, man.
There are folks that will ride, and as long as the road's not frozen, they're good to go.
Yeah.
That's what makes
the
me
extreme
feel,
I'm talking about. That's the extreme that I'm talking about.
those are the folks that make me feel like a little bit of a pansy.
Yeah. But here's the thing. If you have to, do it. But if you don't have to, don't. There's just, it doesn't make sense. Like if you're going cross country and you hit shitty weather, well, guess what? You better sack up and get through that. But if you're like, fuck, I like riding every fucking day, but there's like a hailstorm or there's some extreme weather, and it never happens in California.
Yeah.
Take a fucking Uber. Like there's no reason that you have to like take that chance.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to be like, whoa, that was so fucking cool. You went to work when it was like below 0. Like, that's amazing, dude. Nobody cares.
Yeah.
Nobody cares.
I agree about that. There's if you wake up and it's pouring rain or hailing, like you said, and you still put all your gear on to go for a pleasure ride, you're insane.
Yeah. Yeah. While your car's just parked there and you're like, fuck that Prius. I'm not driving that. I'm driving my bike.
I was going to ask, when did you start riding? What's your riding background?
So my family's never ridden. I have no old school original riding experience. And when I was about 16 years old, I was working at the YMCA as a lifeguard. My best friend, Brandon Elliott, he had the traditional American family. Let's go to the desert. Let's go to Mojave. Let's take the dirt bikes out. Let's go do, you know, that was the thing. And his father, Robert, as well, he would help me do like mechanic work, and you know, he showed me the bikes, and you know, I'd fuck around. They had a big property. This was in Santa Cruz County, and they had a big property. We'd fuck around there, and then I went to Mojave. And then right before we went to Mojave, I bought one of the dirt bikes. They had a used one. I bought a 250 Yamaha. Took it out to the desert. I got lost. We were riding all like in the middle. I got lost. I separated. I got fucking lost. I mean, I was in the middle of nowhere. And then another good friend of mine, David Nixon, you know, he went and found me. He was like, well, you know, one of the badasses. They were doing stunts. They were doing races. They were doing everything. And then I liked it. Then I seized my engine. Then I took the quad, and then I crashed the quad a million times. And then I took another dirt bike. Then I crashed that dirt bike. And then I was just hooked, you know, and I was like, this is fucking great. Then I sold my Yamaha that was with the seized motor. I pretty much sold it for what I paid, so it was a score. And then a good friend of mine, Maloa, she had I forgot what happened. She moved to San Francisco or something happened in San Francisco, and they had a Ninja 650, you know, like 80 something. And she was like, "You want it?" I was like, "I'll take it." I took it. It was rusty as shit.
That was your first street bike.
That was my first street bike. And it was just rusty. It was just beat up, nasty. And I'm probably like 17 at this point. It was just fucked up. So I'm like WD-40, scraping with brush, trying to get it to work. Anyways, I had that about for 4 months. And then I bought a 1200 custom. You know, that was my first Harley. I wanted to buy an 883. The dealer's like, "No, bro, you need a 1200. And I was like, no, the 883 looks cool. Anyways, he sold me that. And then after that, I was just hooked. I kept it at a friend's house for like 5-6 days because I was like, if my mom sees this, she's gonna kick my fucking ass. Like, I can't have this. But after 5 days, I found out he was sitting on it and taking pictures. And I'm like, fuck. I was so pissed because the 1200 Custom's all blacked out with chrome Sportster, right? So I was like, you know, I'm taking it to my house. So I rode in to my house. We were living in Santa Cruz County. And my mom looks out the window of the house, and she just looks at me, looks at the bike, and she goes, "Nice bike." And I was like, "Yes!" And then where I really got crazy with it is I was working for Univision, you know, which is a Spanish television station. I was doing a radio sales, and I started thinking, I go, how come they're not marketing to the Hispanic market? You know, I was like, this is not, you know, I know a lot of people that speak Spanish or are bilingual, and they're not, you know, targeting them. So I went to the, you know, Monterey County Harley Davidson and spoke to the new owners at that time. This was 2006, around there. And I said, "Hey, why aren't you advertising to me?" You know, like, I had to go out of my way and do this. You know, I didn't even know about motorcycles, you know, to jerk bike and this. So let's target the Hispanic market. And I put a nice campaign package. And then this is where it gets crazy because they were thinking about it. And then they ended up loving the idea, and they said, "Okay, we're doing this because we trust you," you know. And I said, "Look, I'm gonna throw a big event. We're gonna do TV. We're gonna do radio, all in Spanish. We're gonna sell bikes." They're like, "Okay." That weekend, I went to one of my buddies on the nightclub in Monterey County, and it was closed down, but we had a poker night. And long story short, we had drinks. We got fucked up. I got in my car, or actually I walked to McDonald's, and as I'm walking to McDonald's, it's closed. So I go to the drive-thru, and I'm like, "I'd like to order," you know, and they're like, "Sir, you can't order food if you don't have a car." And I'm like, "But I'm drunk," you know, and they're like, "Dude, you can't, but I'm hungry." And they're like, "Sir, you have to be in a car." And I was like, "Oh, be in a car." So I walk back to, like, you know, maybe a mile, get my car. I come back in my car. I'm in the drive-thru, and I was like, "I'd like to order 20-piece chicken nuggets." Burp, burp. I'm like, "Oh, fuck." Pull out of the driveway. I pulled out of the driveway. I get arrested and get a DUI. I missed that weekend. That was like a Thursday. I missed the weekend of the radio show. So the Harley dealer's pissed, right? I wasn't there to do the ads. Anyways, what happens after that is I call them up and I say, "Look, guys, I got arrested, got a DUI. I will no longer be working for the company because I'm an account executive. And I got to, you know, visit my clients and do that. And since I don't have a license, I can't do that. But I'm going to make good. I'm going to take care of you." So I did this huge promotion, and they sold probably like, I don't know, it was like 7-8 bikes, you know, in 2 days, which was good at the time. And then after that, they said, "Hey, when's your last day at Univision?" I go, "Well, next week." They're like, "Okay, we're going to hire you." And I go, "What do you mean you're going to hire me?" They're like, "We're going to give you a job, and you're going to be the general manager." And I was like, "What?" And then it was interesting because the way I talked to them and we agreed on is I was the general manager, but there was no sales reps. Okay, so to be a sales rep, you have to have a vehicle sales license. So I hired people with no sales license, and they were customer experience representatives. And the borderline is, if you don't talk about numbers or negotiations or credit apps, then you can
make them fall in love.
You could just, you know, that's it. The moment they talk about numbers, you're not allowed to do that.
Got it.
So that goes to me. So I was the general manager, finance manager. I was everything. So I had 5 reps just talking about motorcycle experiences, bike parts, how to customize it, where to ride, how to ride, classes to take. You know, it was just this awesome, informative experience. And then the client felt no pressure that they were, you know, being pushed to buy. And then they were like, okay, I'll buy it. And they're like, well, we can't sell you the bike. You know, let me call Robert.
Yeah,
we're not salespeople. It was great.
Selling you. I'm just telling you how rad motorcycles are. Yeah,
I'm telling you what I do and where I go and what they say. But okay, hold on. And then they would call me in and I'd do the deal. And then I was like, I made a killing because I was finance commission, you know, sales commission. It was a great system. It was a great system. So I did that, and that's how I really got into the whole motorcycle. And then from there, it was just like, you know, I started buying and selling, taking in trade-ins.
That's rad. I really honestly believe that's the way the motorcycle sales model should be still. You know, I mean, two parts. If the utilitarian component of motorcycle sales really starts to take flood, then you need a salesperson.
Right.
If we're still where we are at right now in terms of like this is a hobby or like a cool lifestyle idea, then what you need is advocates that are telling you like, oh, you thought this was cool? Let me tell you why it's this cool. And like, this is why you should get that bike. And this is why you should definitely ride this one. And then stop there. And then you go talk to that guy for numbers for sure. Like that's the way that motorcycle sales should go.
You know, that's so funny because Kevin and Roger were the owners of that dealer, and we came up with this system. And I'm telling you, this is 2007, 2008, something around there. And you're right. That's how all dealers should be, because you don't understand. I had a team of non-salespeople of just talking about all the cool shit, all the conveniences, all the reasons, with the zero pitch. They had zero incentive to sell. The only incentive they had to sell was they liked me, they respected me, they knew that was my paycheck.
Yeah.
And of course, we'd get them bonuses, or we'd, you know, fucking pizza day or whatever the case is. And they got paid. They didn't get paid minimum wage. They got paid a decent amount. But it's just like no customer felt stupid or intimidated speaking to them. And this is something that I've talked on this podcast many times. One of the problems is the Harley-Davidson dealer culture, not all of them, because Matt Laidlaw has a great thing going on over there, and a bunch of others that I visited do decent. But you still see that like, oh, we work at a Harley shop and we know more than everybody and we don't get along with
Robert. Unfortunately, it's not just Harley culture either. It's across the board with it. You know what I mean? Like it is that sort of, that is another barrier of entry. It's you're entering into the cool kids club by doing this, right?
Yeah.
Instead of being like,
yeah,
oh man, you have this interest in this? Oh, sick. This is why you should also be interested. You know about this, you know about that. Like, get you even more pumped. If you came in with like 50% stoke, the quote unquote salesperson should leave you with 90% stoke, 70%. You know what I mean? Like that should be like brought up even more so of like how rad this is.
Right.
Especially in this market, because we haven't really tapped into that utilitarian market yet. Like it's not meant for like, oh, you do deliveries or you're just trying to like cut down on your commuter bill or whatever, blah, blah, blah. No. We're trying to sell a dream here. So why are you trying to poo-poo this person's dream?
Yeah, and it happens. There's many people that want to go and purchase a motorcycle. Shit, it's not just the motorcycle. You're right. I keep knocking on Harley because that's my experience.
Sure.
But it's just many dealers.
Yeah.
I went today to the Burbank of BMW Burbank dealer. It's Burbank, one or the other. It's backwards.
Yeah.
But I went there. I feel many times like today was the first day they were a little bit cooler than other days, and I bought a bunch of fucking gear. But there's been other times that I walk in there and I want to buy gear, and I'm like, hey, I got a question, or hey, what would you recommend? It's like, oh yeah, just sometimes you should just go online and read reviews, and it's like, well, what's the fucking point of being here? And you don't have that. You don't have that personal one-on-one.
For us, the writing is on the wall too, so much because even if you're already sort of in the middle of like, well, it's not just a stoke. We're not just selling an experience or a lifestyle or blah blah blah. We're actually selling a product that does a certain thing. you know, at one point in time, stereos and other electronics were like that, right?
Right.
And then Best Buy popped up, and you didn't have a person who was passionate about this stereo system that was telling you about it. You just had a person in a blue polo shirt who was trying to make a sale, and that was that. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
we don't.
But they're. My question. Okay, you're the expert. You're the expert. So you have well, in the sense of your experience in marketing, and that's what you focus on. So here's my rebuttal. Best Buy, perfect example. They I think the reason they're so successful and they took out so many mom and pop shops out is because mom and pop shops out were only commission based only. So you would want to go see a stereo, and you had this like sales guy saying, "This is the best stereo, and hurry now, and you got to get this. It's $5,000." Well, I don't want that. I want something more simpler. Well, you don't want that piece of shit, you know, because you know, like it was difficult. Where Best Buy was neutral, and I'll give you another example of this. CarMax. Look what CarMax did.
I only argue that these sort of big box retailers were able to do that with their buying power. They came in as a business plan with a franchise model.
But they're so fucking open. I think that's why they're successful.
Because they could do that because they had gigantic buying power. Those mom and pop shops started with a passion, and then they got pushed to do like, well, you get bigger incentives if you sell ours. Like the manufacturers are like, we'll push ours and we'll give you a spiff. So then we're like, oh, this one is the one, right?
Right.
And then that business model flipped for, say, a CarMax or a Best Buy, where they just were like, we're going to buy everything at such a deep discount that it levels the playing field for everybody. But then it let the customer experience be as neutral or boring as well.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like nobody was an enthusiast. Nobody, the sales force that they had on the floor weren't hi-fi enthusiasts or TV enthusiasts or whatever. You know, they were folks just looking for a job that paid minimum wage and like move a unit. Cool,
right. And they move a unit, get some commissions and stuff. And actually, you know what? I want to take back the comparing CarMax and Best Buy, because what CarMax did is, when you wanted to buy a used car, you would have to, let's say in the internet age, you would go online and see the same car, and there'd be a difference of like $7,000 to $5,000, a difference in price. And that's obviously because they bought it at a different price, mileage, this, that. But when you spoke to them, you could never get a direct answer. And I did car sales, you know, I did car sales, and it's like, well, you can't give them the numbers over the phone because then they're just going to shop them. Yeah. You know, you got to tell them, hey, come over, test ride it, this, that. So I think CarMax was just kind of like open and saying, here you go.
Yeah. But took the haggle part out of it.
Yeah, it took the haggle part. But what you're saying about Best Buy and you know, the mom and pop shops, yeah, that's absolutely true.
Yeah. So enthusiasts are still something that like pushes the culture forward. Like that's what's important to keep it. If you, from somehow ancillary thing, this is again from a person who does, you know, maybe high level marketing of like, hopefully doing something that implants an idea in somebody's brain to be like, motorcycles are tight, I should go check that out. In fact, I want to pursue that as something that I want. And then when they walk into the dealership and their experience is that of somebody of just like, wait, who are you? What the fuck do you do? You don't know anything? Like, what do you want? Like, what? You want this? And it's like,
you want a Sportser or Dyna? I don't know which one's which.
Yeah. And it's not like
it's bullying.
It's not a warm, embracing situation. Yeah. If I was a brand new person and I walked into a dealership, I would want it to feel as warm and embracing as like a pub. It's like, hey man, you're here? Tight. We're pumped you're here. For whatever reason you're here. Why are you here? Doesn't matter. You're
T-shirts.
Here.
Cool.
We're stoked to have you around, right? Like that should be the feeling. But
that's not what's happening. And I don't know if it's corporate. I don't know, and I'm not picking on Harley no more. I'm talking about all the manufacturers now because you made that excellent point.
Guilty of it, yeah.
You know, well, whose fault is it? Is it the manufacturers because of training to the dealers, to the franchises, or is it the franchise owner's fault, or is it the manager's fault, or is it all bullshit aside?
Arguably,
it starts at top.
It's all
It starts at the top. But I know, but it starts at the top. If you don't change the top, then if you don't make the change from the top, what are you going to expect? That it's going to start at the bottom and change everything?
Yeah,
that's not going to happen. So it's definitely corporate's fault. Fuck you guys.
Here's also where I give this is where I give the top the pass to. It's kind of a culture situation because motorcycling up to this point has been very, counterculture, and like I said, you have to earn your stripes. Like, are you worthy of being here? You know what I mean? Like, are you just some dork person who's going to use this as a fashion accessory? Which, whatever, if you want to, man. Cool.
Who gives a fuck?
But
he's going to spend money at your location.
There's still a bit of a hardcoreness that is like, are we accepting of the folks that want to adapt to this?
Right.
If yes, cool. So, I mean, it's almost. I think of skate culture always as sort of the epicenter of cool, where it all resides from, right? So skate culture for me has always been like the baseline of like, this is where fashion comes from. This is where musical taste comes from. This is the epicenter of counterculture, right? And motorcycles really fits into that too. So I'm okay with a little bit of like a barrier of entry. Like, do you want this for the right reasons? All right, cool. Then let you in. But like, it still should be warm, embracing.
I get that. Especially with clubs, riders, tracks, fucking groups. I get that, but not at the dealer.
No.
Not at a dealer.
If a person
not
has come
the
there
first
to really,
impression,
yes.
not the first impression.
Yeah.
Not when a person's purchasing their first bike and they're just kind of like, look, hypothetically, let's say Maloa. This is the girl that gave me the bike. Let's say Maloa didn't give me that bike, and I never had that Ninja. All right, I did the dirt biking with Brandon and David and Robbie and Megan. Total dirt bike names, right? Yep. Robbie, David, so hilarious. I love those guys. But let's say I did that, but then I never bought my own motorcycle. I bought the dirt bike, sold it back, and then Maloa didn't send me that bike. Now I walk into a dealer, and the dealer's like, we're busy. Do you know what you want? Or when you know what you want, you come to us. And I'm like, well, fuck, I have no idea what I want. Okay, I'm just going to look around. And I left. If I left, I have purchased, I want to say over 30, 40 bikes.
Yeah,
I've purchased a shitload of bikes.
Yeah.
And I've gotten many people to ride. And then I worked at a dealer and sold a lot of fucking bikes.
Yeah.
If that was my scenario and I never got into motorcycles, I can honestly say there's probably at least 50 motorcycles, if not, and whatever chain that led to, of riders that wouldn't be riding.
Totally. Yeah, you're talking about because you're influenced, the people that you've evangelized.
Well, I'm talking about because I didn't have to deal with that bullshit, and somebody gave me a motorcycle, and I probably bought it for $600, and they gave me a motorcycle, and I was already kind of hooked, so I was already kind of part of the group. But if I didn't have that experience and I had to go to a dealer and I got treated this way, maybe I never would have gotten into motorcycles the way that I'm into motorcycles.
To that point, I think that's the biggest thing that dealerships are missing sometimes is that like, if you get a person that's sort of brand new, you have such a rad opportunity to take that person in, embrace them, get them on a bike, and then watch them be the event. Like, it's almost a pyramid scheme, right?
It's a pyramid scheme.
If you can get that guy hooked, guess how many of their friends are going to get hooked? And if they know that you're the rad person that's got the dope fucking hookup, who are they going to send them back to? You know what I mean? Like, it literally is just like that. It kind of blows my mind sometimes, the folks that just think of it as transactional and are done with it at that point.
Yeah, they don't fucking care.
Yeah.
I really think now that I said it out loud and I'm reliving it, I really do believe that customer experience manager that's not a sales guy and just talk about cool shit and just answers all the silly the questions we think are silly but are so important to the consumer, and just kind of educate them. Because look how far deep my customer experience representatives were. Not only did they talk about the bikes and the rides and what they do and what they like and what their hobbies and customizing it, but they would even take them to the apparel section and say, look, this is my favorite helmet, but let me show you the difference between. So it was this one guy just doing so much stuff that by the time they came to me, I I don't want to sound like an asshole, but I'm talking about lay down.
Totally.
Lay down.
Totally.
Wallet fully open.
What do you-
Here's my ID. Run the credit.
Can I have
it.
your number? Can I follow you
The
on
only
Instagram?
time-
Where are you going riding next week?
So after Monterey County Harley Davidson, we moved down to Los Angeles, and then I started working for Van Nuys Harley. They closed down, and then they opened up in Santa Clarita. But when I was in Van Nuys Harley Davidson, you know, the same thing. It was more difficult to sell because now it was a hole in the wall. It was an old dealer. It had been there for 47 years, but nobody knew it was there, and sales were tougher. But then comes 2008. 2008, when the housing market crashes, it was crazy how many people came to the dealer with their wife and their kids, and the husband's like, I'm here trying to hold a straight face. I'm here to buy a motorcycle to save money on gas and insurance and fucking oil. And I'm like, okay.
We got you, bro.
That was the only other time, which was like for like 4 months, that I sold a shitload of fucking bikes, you know, because, you know, the wife was giving blessings. Honey, I need to, you know, it's expensive to have a car. Like, it's fucking, it was so silly. But that was the only time. Outside of that, it's just a big hurdle to get across for a new buyer, a new purchaser.
You touched on something a little bit earlier, and I kind of want to go back to in terms of marketing towards maybe a more diverse faction of people. I kind of struggle with the reflection of how representative the marketing in the motorcycle industry reflects the folks that actually ride. And I was curious from your perspective is, you know, you're Cuban, correct?
Correct.
Yeah. Like as a person,
I'm American, but my parents are
Totally,
Cuban. My
same.
nationality,
Yeah.
Just to make sure. Because some people are like, go back to fucking Cuba. Like, yeah, but go ahead.
yeah. I'm curious, like from the marketing side of things, how do you feel about the diversity in marketing now? Do you think that the motorcycle industry could do a better job speaking
100%.
to folks to
100%. 100%. I mean, I can't talk about other markets. I can't talk about the black market, the Asian market, the, you know, Mexico, you know, but in the Hispanic market, I don't see any marketing whatsoever for the Hispanic market. And I don't understand why. There's money in it. There's credit. There's financing. There's hobbyists. This Monday, I was very excited. Were you aware about what happened Monday?
What happened on Monday?
It was a track day Harley Davidson only event. You know, and it was the first one ever. You know, so it was very exciting. And one cat that I met, he was Colombian, and he has an electric motorcycle, and the Harley, the Livewire. He has the Livewire, and he rode cross country on a Livewire. The thing only gets 100 miles, and then you got to charge it 100 miles. That much. Yeah. And I'm gonna have him on the podcast soon. But you know, he's Colombian, and he's gonna take it to South America, and he's breaking all these records. And Harley's acknowledging him, and they even like got him a new bike because he put like 15,000. They're starting to have some issues, so they give him a new bike. But I'm hearing this, you know, and he has an accent in English, and you know, and I'm like, why isn't this blowing up? Like, why aren't more people paying attention to this? You know, like I just still feel many different races or, you know, cultures are not being targeted as much, and
or represented. That's the wild part to me.
Like, I got a guy on my Instagram.
Yeah.
I don't know him at all. Yeah. But all I know is he's from Singapore, and he rides Harleys. Yeah. And he's such a fanatic. I wish I knew. I would totally give a shout out. But he's such a fanatic, and I'm like, dude, this guy's in Singapore riding, you know. You know, he has his Harley vest, he has his patches from Singapore, the ones they created, and I'm like, this guy's like hardcore rider, and I get it. In Singapore, he's known, but outside of that, like, that's not.
They don't embrace him. They don't wrap their arms around him. Yeah, I felt that too. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. One more.
Yeah.
Even like BMW, you see people riding, and you see BMW taking advantage of promoting these videos of Mongolia, of, you know, South America ride, of US ride, of Canada ride. Like you see some brands that kind of take advantage of all the markets they're in, but not all brands do.
Yeah, yeah. I agree. I mean, from a marketing perspective, I've always thought that like a big way to invite folks into your brand is to show those folks doing that, right?
Right.
Like, so if you see an image of a person who looks like you doing a thing that you thought you might be able to do, it resonates
do it.
way more than just like seeing a regular photo, right? Like, so, yeah, man, it's interesting to see, especially now, how brands are activating towards folks that and wrapping their arms around like just
Well, they're
motorcycles
kind of
across the board.
defaulting to what they're familiar. You know, I'll give another example. There was a point. I know I'm going to get my ass kicked because I said this right now, but
Yikes.
fuck it. There was a point where I was like, you know what? Girls shouldn't ride bikes because I don't play with Barbies.
Sure.
But now I'm seeing some badass fucking girls doing stunts and killing it. And I'm like, well, fuck, guys. If girls can ride like that, but you know what? Of course they can ride like that. They do ballet. They're flexible. They're light. They're perfect for motorcycles. Why aren't we targeting, as a business professional, why wouldn't we target to the female market?
To that point specific, I feel like the best MotoGP rider to come is going to be a female. Because if you look at the physique, like
It's like horses.
it's horses,
It's like horses.
or a gymnast,
or gymnasts.
like upper body strength, small displacement, and
And
cool,
lower
calm,
body strength, tight.
cool, calm, collected brain patterns too. Like if you're just like mellow thinking.
Well, that's
and
what I'm
like-
saying. Like if you think about a woman doing, you know, like ballet.
Yes.
You know how organized and how they move and how they
Totally.
And what I mean by like tight legs, I'm talking about like, you know, all
Yes.
the body strength is there, especially if you're gonna get into stunts.
Totally.
It's so much. They have the advantage, but yeah, I get it. The riders are like, fuck that shit.
Right.
But you know what? Sorry, writers. It's not all about you guys.
Totally.
As a business, look, that's what it is, bro. For MV Agusta, I think you guys should go balls out on the female market, the
Yeah.
female and the Hispanic market, and touch something that you guys haven't done.
If we get back into the MotoGP, we need a female Hispanic rider. Sure.
Imagine, yeah, with a sister.
Totally. Totally.
Cool, man. I think we figured out a new strategy. I think we have some new ideas out there. I really enjoyed. We met. What, it was 4 weeks ago now.
Yeah.
Was it 4 weeks ago or
It's about 4 weeks ago.
Yeah.
On the ride up to the Rockstar, yeah.
to the rock? Well, originally we met up with Mark Gamo's thing.
Yes.
LA Moto.
Yep.
LA Moto's place. They
Shout
set
out
up
to
a
Mark
post.
Gamo. Yep.
Shout out to Mark Gamo. He's been on the podcast.
Oh, cool.
Oh my God. We had never met him. Wasn't even I have no fucking idea who that guy is. He just sat down right here like you and I, and man, like it was like we grew up together.
That's
it was
awesome.
insane.
It's awesome.
But shout out to Mark Gamo. Shout out to LA Moto for doing those open rides. That's how we met. We were on our way to somewhere else, and then we ended up breaking off and went to the Rock Store.
Yep.
We went to what was it called? That restaurant, Old Place.
Yeah, the old place.
The
Yep.
place was the Old Place, and then we broke off while they continued up Malibu.
Yep.
I'm happy you came on. We mentioned, I'm gonna document this.
Sure.
You said maybe I could speak to your mom.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because your mom's a badass.
Yeah.
She's an instructor. One more time. Your mom's been an instructor, trainee. She's trained the military.
Yeah. So my mom's background, she like I said, she raced speedway in the 70s. She raced flat track in the 90s. She's currently a MSF instructor.
What a great transition, huh? We went
yeah.
from female marketing
Yeah.
into your mom. That was perfect.
Totally.
Just like we wrote it down. We did not write that down.
My mom is rad too because like she started riding when she was 17. She was that girl that like rode to the beach in her bikini with no helmet, and just like she got into it. It's awesome having her as my mom and then becoming a marketer, because she's one of those people who like didn't have None of her folks were into it. She was influenced by an outside influence, right? So
Right.
if what I'm trying to do is influence folks who have never maybe thought about riding motorcycles, or could be kind of on the ancillary and like, look, motorcycles are tight too, and they're like, fuck yeah, that's what I
Yeah.
want to do. She is like test subject number one for that, right?
Yeah.
She comes from, you know, a horse riding background or whatever. She saw a television program in the late 60s, early 70s. That was called Along Came Bronson, and that's what influenced her to ride. And then, yeah, she bought her first bike. Her family luckily didn't object. She took her first ride across country.
That's
when she was
crazy
17.
because this was older times.
Yeah, totally.
Woman rider, only Hell's Angels and outlaws were riding motorcycles,
Totally.
and it got accepted. And it's cool that she did it, but it's even cooler that her family, your grandparents accepted it.
I don't think that they had. I don't know if they like knew how to object to her. Like my mom is like a force, you know what I mean? Like if you talk to her, she's very sweet when you talk to her, but like the real her is a force. So like if you try to tell her no about anything, she'll be like,
What the fuck are you?
Yeah.
I can't wait to talk to her.
Yeah, cool.
And she's in Japan now?
No, she's now in Florida. So her and her husband sold their condo like maybe 4 or 5 years ago, and are now living that RV life where they have an RV. They tow their bikes behind in a trailer and then just go to wherever it's rad. A year ago, I met them up in Alaska.
That's the true American dream.
Yeah,
It's not
totally.
buying a house and settling for 30
Totally.
fucking years and paying in debt. It's being free.
And still being adventurous, you know, late into your 60s and 70s and 80s and 90s. I hope the sun goes down on me while I have a helmet on my head as well.
Yeah. Yeah, at an older age.
Totally.
At an older age. That was I'm gonna give a shout out to a good friend of mine, Robert. We called him Fridge. He passed. But you know, he was 68 at the time, 67, 68. And I was having a conversation with him, and he says he had a badass collection of Harleys. You know, he had like probably 7 bikes or something at the time. And he goes, Robert, I feel so old. And I'm like, but Fridge, bro, you did it. You know? And he's like, did what? And I go, like you made it. Like you had kids, and then your kids had kids, and now you're still riding motorcycles, and you're still getting tattoos. Like you fucking did it, bro. Like understand. People don't get to that age, or people don't see the things they're supposed to see. And he smiled, and he's like, you're fucking right, man. And unfortunately, probably a year later, he passed. He passed. It was a procedure that went wrong. You know, like it was the dumbest procedure that should have been like an in and out. Like you go to the doctor, you come out, and that's it. And he passed, and it was very unfortunate.
Bro, but if you had that conversation with him and it made him be like, you know, you're right.
It was my last conversation. I get goosebumps about it.
Yeah.
You know, I get goosebumps about it.
That's rad.
But a shout out to him. A shout out to you. I appreciate you, man. You're a rad dude. We'll be doing this again until next time, man.
We'll definitely be
We did over an hour and a half.
rad.
All right, brother.
Cheers.
Oh, I got to pass by and write one of those MV Agustas.
Absolutely.
On
anytime.
record.
For sure.
Thank you very much to all the listeners and subscribers, followers, and everybody sharing the podcast. I just want to give out a big thank you. I love doing this. I'm doing this because I want to learn more, and as I'm learning, I want to take you guys on this journey. Please make sure to share this with whoever you can. If you haven't subscribed yet, subscribe. If you haven't followed. Check out the Instagram at Ride Boundless on Instagram, as well as Facebook and Twitter. Until then, ride safe, ride hard, ride boundless.